Okay, cool. So we're here today with Emery or Lost Cause Photo and reached out and I've been following Emery for a while and thought it'd be really cool to jump on and have the chats, all things digi developments. I'm kind of looking forward to the future as well and seeing how stuff will develop over the next like 5 to 10 years and where we think things are going to go. And I think there's no better man than Emery to be thinking ahead. So welcome, Emery. Hope you're keeping
No,
well.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem, no problem. So I think the best place to start is at the start. So, when did you start getting into Digi and kind of where did you start?
So I've been a tech for I'm coming up on a decade now. I started off at restoration hardware of all places, kind of got into it a little bit by chance, at least in terms of getting that the first job. I've been, went to school for photography. I was kind of looking for what to do. And kind of, not fell into teching, but found teching kind of is like, oh, this is a lot of fun. This is kind of the thing to do. And so I've been doing this full time for a while now.
And you've worked on some really cool shoots, especially over the past 2 years. Notice you worked on a bit of back end stuff for Nike, kind of
Mhm.
working with metadata stuff and a lot of big other things, which is really cool. But I suppose just trying to bring it back again and maybe what the first digi job was or the first official tech job that you did. Probably with myself, I did a lot of assisting with tech and like in that. But then what was like the first official tech job that you had?
Yeah, so the first job I had was with restoration hardware. They're like kind of big holiday catalog push. So
Right.
they send these catalogs internationally, just in the States. They're big, thick catalogs.
Yeah.
And they were just like they're always behind, kind of just pulling in everyone who's looked at a camera before. But so, I got thrown in immediately with comping and phase one cameras and just like big sets, sets that put a lot of apartments to shame.
Yeah.
Um, and they like I did that basically full time for a couple of months. And then after that, just kind of started picking up more freelance jobs, all referrals, and they continue to all be referrals.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you were working that full-time job, were you picking up a few bits of gear here and there? So then when you did do the freelance work, you were ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, so the RH thing was all freelance, but at that point it was all on their gear. Yeah, basically exactly. Yeah, I was kind of started with a digiplate, moved up to a cart, and then monitors, and now I've got a whole
Oh, sweet.
set of shelves full of stuff and stuff behind me.
Yeah, it just keeps on growing and growing and growing. There's no end. No end to
No.
the gear. So yeah, so talking gears, like, do you have any favorite piece of gear that you've picked up that you're like, okay, um, this has kind of saved my butt once or two many times, you know?
Oh, and some of my favorite and it's maybe not surprising. Stream decks are fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the life-saving point, but just every time when I first got it, put it out on set, and the style's going, can you shoot one? Yep. Command K, can you shoot one? Yep. And it's like here's this little box. Push the button whenever you want a picture, and then everyone just loves it. It makes things so much easier.
Yeah, yeah, and you've been developing them a lot because I seen only recently that you start bringing in like the levels into it and making it using like the scroll wheels if you want to call them
Yep.
on them and making Capture One work for its money anyway, with
Yes.
with all the integrations doing it. So what's kind of like the process of like, okay, is it just like I'm gonna play around with this idea or do you have an idea and you're like, okay, right, let's make it.
Yeah, I said the Stream Deck plugin is definitely kind of let's see if this is something that's possible. Like they've got kind of a documented API, and it's kind of like no, Capture One hasn't done anything. No one else has made a plugin for this. Using just keyboard shortcuts have a lot of limitations. Yeah, if you switch applications, doesn't work. If you have different, if you go and use someone else's set or the keyboard shortcuts get changed, doesn't work. And there are a lot of things that just aren't, in Capture One that aren't controllable from keyboard shortcut. So that, the plugin uses all Apple script bindings. Some of them, just kind of simple, like, toggle grids on and off. And then others are more complex scripts that kind of, my cat is everywhere.
That's
That
good.
like like the stream deck dials, for instance. The just image adjustments, like each of those is basically kind of profiled. So each click of the dial, does the same increment that it does in Capture One. Clicking it resets. And then the levels are a whole different kind of worms. Those are a little bit hacky, but they work surprisingly well. I'm excited to get those out to people to see what they think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the fact that the image that's actually on the deck is the same that's in the program, which is pretty cool.
Hmm.
I really enjoyed seeing that. So would you beta test a lot of your programs and then wait for the feedback to come in and then kind of listen to the people that use your programs and kind of make little changes from there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So usually, the process is I like either I'll have an idea for something, or people will, get in touch with like, hey, wouldn't it be nice if I could do this, whether it's in one of my applications or the plugin. And that kind of gets put in the list. And then eventually, when it's like, okay, it's time for an update for whatever, kind of go through the list, see what things I want to include, and then try and build them out. And then do a beta cycle where it's like, is anything fundamentally broken that I've missed?
Yeah.
And then it's kind of just keeps going from there.
Yeah. Yeah, really cool. Because I did notice that one or two programs have popped up there even since Christmas that I was looking at it like, you know. But personally, when I first came across it, it was for the screens. I think I emailed you on this as well. It was for like the
Yeah,
screens
screening room.
profile. Super handy, super simple, and it's just one of those things that like you needed the whole time because basically before I was using your screens program. I was using a Hollyland M1. So then it was kind of like
Hmm.
an extended screen and it was also you could see what you were transmitting, which is a nice setup. But it required you like just to be have an extra thing on set, you know? And
It's yeah, got more
the
batteries to manage, more
yeah, it's just
devices to keep
just
track
more
of.
things, you know. So this solution's really nice, you know. And then I've been playing around with the first contact program as well.
Hmm.
It's nice because like I come from like a design background, which I studied in college, and that's what I struggle with Adobe Bridge. It's just like there's not as much. You can't just play with it as much as you'd like to make it
Hmm.
as clean as you'd like. So I do appreciate someone coming in and fixing the program, you know, and coming up with a better solution, you know. So how did you think about coming up with that one? What was kind of like the moment that it was like, come on, right, this needs to change. We need to come up with a better one of these.
For first contact, yeah, and
Yeah.
so that's basically, I think at some point, I don't know, a few months before I kind of started poking around with it, I asked in one of the many forums, like, what are are there better, applications for making contact sheets than Bridge, which is both not a great application, period, not a great application for making contact sheets, and requires a whole Adobe subscription, which I don't have and don't ever want to have. And kind of all of the answers like, no, you can use, like you can make an automator action that will build a contact sheet, but the image quality is worse than a potato.
Yeah.
It's awful. And it's not configurable. It's kind of, it gives you, maybe rows and columns, that's about it. But
Mm,
there's no, very little configuration. And it's, again, one of those like, okay, well, how hard could it be?
mm,
And so it's, you kind of start playing with a little prototype, like a script that's okay. Can I just get images aligned into a grid? Great. Yes. Okay. Cool. Can I like resize the images? Can I, recompress them so they're not just, full resolution, get them down to what they need to be? And then, yeah, what niceties can I build around that with, headers and footers and eventually, tokens and kind of what are all of the things that you need a contact sheet application to provide if you're actually using it on set, just to make it as quick and easy as possible. Because inevitably it's the end of the day. Everyone's like, oh, we need that contact sheet. It's like, okay, hang on, I need to recompress, and it's like, just make it painless.
Yeah, because like previously when I was using when I did my first contact shoot for my own personal work, classic first time you're shooting and then someone asks you, oh, could I get a contact sheet for that? And you haven't a clue what they're talking about. Then you go onto
It's
YouTube and try and figure it out. And then the first one I did was actually through the Photoshop script, the automated Photoshop
oh yeah,
thing. Yeah, which is it's interesting, it did the job that day. But yeah, instantly I kind of was like, there has to be a better way of this, like, because it's such a common thing.
it's exactly.
Yeah, and it's nearly an essential piece of the workflow, like. So when we're talking about workflow, from what I see from the stuff you're putting up online is that you seem to work with clients that have extensive workflows already for themselves within their company.
Mhm.
You seem to come in and complement and work within that. So for example, with the Nike stuff, you're pulling from their internal system, the SKUs and all the product information, kind of building that into the metadata, the photos within Capture One. And I thought that was really cool. So I'd love if you could kind of share a little bit more about that journey and how you kind of found you kind of found doing that and maybe some of the challenges that you came across and overcame.
Yeah, and so a lot of the client work kind of has grown from building all the applications, for use for text on set. It started off with building a an application for the Gap. Like their process was tedious to say the very least. Like at the beginning of the week, it's a ecom studio, so it's lots of shots, lots of kind of TDM. Like you'd get a big thick shot list that's just a printout of FileMaker. So like the process is like, okay, we need to, here's the tag with, for the shirt or whatever. Luckily, it would have a barcode, so you'd go and scan that in, but that wouldn't actually mean anything. So like you'd have to basically flip through this book, try and find the appropriate shot to like cross that off. Someone had built a very basic script that would create a list of folders, just in the Finder, and so you do a Finder search, scan the barcode. Hopefully, it would bring up the correct folder. You drag that into Capture One, there's Capture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the day, you'd end up with kind of this. You cross-reference the style. It's like, hey, okay, how many shots did we do? 70? 72. Styles, is kind of doing the same things, doing like a little tally sheets. Like I got 71. It's like, okay, well, I've got 70 folders. Let's go flip through the book, see if that's correct. And so it's kind of there's got to be a better way to do this. And so I worked with them to build an application that would create the sessions, the correct dates and formats and everything. Each of their different sub brands had different peculiarities. But the main thing is like it just gives you a shot list. So you know what you're shooting, how many shots you've done, how many products you've done, and the goal is just kind of to make the text life easier. A lot of businessy type people kind of look at the photo process, look at a photo studio, and want to cut as much back as possible. And look, there's a lot of ways that you can use automation to do that. And I don't want to do any of that. Like I want to make our lives easier. I want to make our lives, more efficient. And if that, helps the shot counts, great. But it's ultimately like I want to reduce the kind of tedium. It's like, okay, do I need to manually count up a list of folders? That's tedious. That's going to be error prone. It's going to be wrong. And so I want to make sure that like what we do on set is not a basically not a burden.
Yeah, so yeah, because like from kind of what you were saying online, it was like it reduces human error hugely as well. Because
Hmm.
you can only imagine 70 shots and then you're flipping through books and all that other stuff. yeah, you could see how it get chaotic fairly quick. So you definitely need to keep on top of it, and there's no better way than automating that stuff and reducing that burden on yourself. Like, would I be right in thinking that's you kind of built that capture bot application, and that's kind of the application that was built from the Gap project. Is that right?
Uh, Kind of. So the Gap project was creatively called Gapbot.
Okay.
And it's one of those ideas that, I built it with the idea originally that it could be molded and adapted to suit other brands, but by the time it's finished, it was a complete custom thing. Like it just wasn't suitable for anyone else.
Mm.
Uh, and so I've pulled that basic name in CaptureBot and pulled it along through a few different projects. The latest version, the latest iteration of the name is much more, yeah, kind of bringing back to that roots of like how how can we make the kind of file management tasks for techs easier? So yeah, we've all been there. You process out files and something's missing, or you use the wrong recipe, and it's goes off into another folder, doesn't have the right naming. If you're in a studio environment on a shared system, people love going and changing capture recipes. Like, oh, I just need to process out this one thing instead of making a new recipe. I'll just change
Mm.
this one, and then something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, the new application is basically how can I build something, and I think I have to reconcile like everything you've shot and all the output that you need. So you can have confidence that every file has been processed to the right location with the right name. And it also does some checking to make sure that you're shooting things correctly. You know, did you shoot something to the wrong folder and move it and then forget to rename it? Did you just get a name wrong? You know, Capture One loves every once in a while putting the cursor into the capture name field, and you hit a keyboard shortcut, and nothing happens, nothing happens, nothing happens. You go, oh, hang on, wait, escape. There we go. Now 5 stars. Now your capture name is whatever 5555555.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And so yeah, just trying to resolve little errors like that pop up on set.
Okay, okay. And from the developments of AI and all that comes with that, can you see yourself implementing a little bit of AI into a program like that? Or how do you feel about all this stuff coming down the line?
Yeah, I don't see a lot of value, at least at the moment. And kind of for the foreseeable future for AI in a text workflow for the applications I'm building. The Capture One's AI masking and cropping and whatnot are useful features, and I think that's a good use of AI. But for CaptureBot, for instance, could you develop an AI that would, you know, automatically track down shots and do all things like, yeah, probably. But as we've seen with a lot of, text summaries and such, AIs get it wrong a lot of the time. Like I think that the EU did a big report where, it would have been, it's basically cheaper to have humans summarize everything because you can trust humans do it correctly. Whereas if you have an AI doing it, you then have to go and check that the AI did it correctly, at which point you might as well have just done it
Done it
yourself in
yourself.
the first place.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of how I feel with a lot of, the tools that I'm building for digital text. Could someone use an AI to replace a digital tech? Probably. I mean, I don't think that's great. But the real problem is like, okay, but okay, you're going to save money. You're going to have an AI do it, but do you trust the AI? Now you need someone to like double check the AI, at which point you might as well just hire digital tech. And then
Yeah.
similarly for us on set, do you trust an AI to, you know, do everything correctly? Because if a file is missing or isn't processed correctly, or a bunch of bad frames make it in, you can't go, oh, I don't know, the AI didn't flag them. It's like, well, it's your job to flag them. Um, at
Yeah.
which point it's like, well, I might as well have done it myself in the first place. and use tools that are kind of deterministic. Like if something goes wrong, yeah, there are bugs in every application. I want to be able to kind of look at that and go, oh, here is where it went wrong. Here's the failure in logic instead of just being a black box.
So we were kind of talking about bridge before, and you've kind of made an alternative for the contact sheet function of bridge. Is there any other like applications that you've come across that kind of need to kind of strap their boots on and get a little bit better? Like from my point of view, ChronoSync is amazing and it does what it needs to.
Hmm.
Just doesn't look great, you know? And like I'd prefer if something looked a lot better. While keeping the functionality, you know? So is there any applications that are standing out that you use on the daily that could just need a little bit of touch up?
Yeah, ChronoSync, now that you mentioned, is an application that could use some help. It's like it does a lot of, not in a bad way, like it does a
Yeah.
lot of things. It's a very functional tool, but for a lot of what we specifically need to do, which is, you get 19 client drives and they all need to have the same thing. ChronoSync isn't the best option for that. I don't think there are any outside of, kind of some video offloading tools, and those have their own limitations for a photo workflow. Yeah, it's like ChronoSync, for instance, I don't think it needs a coat of paint. It needs kind of some new features that are specific for our industry, which I think not a lot of people have. Yeah, other applications that could use some work. I mean, Capture One's always a perennial not punching bag, but everyone has strong opinions on what features it should get next. Actually, I think they've been doing a good job of that recently. The latest update has some really interesting new scripting features that I'm looking forward to.